it's a weird double standard because, like, 4 months ago when Donald Trump was president, the reigning liberal theory was that who's president matters more than anything. That this is the most important thing in the world. That everything has to be about, everything has to be about that. But then the second Biden's in, they revert to what they spent 8 years saying under Obama, which is, you silly leftists, you believe in Green Lanternism. That the president could just do anything if they wanted enough. That's so ridiculous. Don't you know that the president is basically powerless? And it's the same structure here with all the Senate stuff. It's like, don't you know that Chuck Schumer is just paralyzed before the power of the Senate parliamentarian?
Well, and also, like you said about the presidency, we live in this quantum state of all of these things being the most important thing during election years, and then it being impossible to do anything with it when you get it outside of election years. I mean, we were told all of 2 months ago that, you get the Reverend Warnock and Ossoff into the Senate, like we get that Senate majority and the sky is the limit. And then as soon as they get in, it's like, well, we can't do anything. Like, obviously, Joe Manchin is the most powerful person in the country ever. So there's nothing we can actually do with this. Vote for more Democrats.
Yeah, I mean, imagine if that had been the pitch during the during those Georgia special elections. Vote for these guys. It won't really matter very much because they can't really do anything. Right. But, you should still vote for them.
Yeah. This is a really important point. Stephen Sheehan, Jack's point, at least with Trump media would criticize the president. Now we get CIA prop on WAPO's front page. Yeah, we'll look at that. But it is true. It's like, wow, it was amazing to have a media that hated the president. Like, now we have the non-Fox, like, basically, like, the New York Times and the Washington Post and MSNBC and CNN are to Biden what Fox was to Trump. Mm-hmm. And we can actually look at this. We have an article. Nick, could we show the article, the WAPO article? Mm-hmm. I don't know if you guys saw this, but the word "showered" was in the headline, which is never a good sign. Let's just look at this. So Biden stimulus showers money on Americans, sharply cutting poverty and favoring individuals over businesses. The $1.9 trillion package enjoys wide support across the country, polls show, but it comes with political and economic risks. And if we could just scroll down.
Shower money, like a
right? Like, yeah. And also, you referred to this, Ben Spielberg, but, like, it is unprecedented, right? But, like, these are unprecedented times. And so, it's not, we have to be, like, that unprecedented nature of what they're doing, take that with a grain of salt, right? Because
I think the thing to keep in mind is this should be the baseline, right? I mean, the fact that the child tax credit was not previously fully refundable and that the lowest income families didn't get it, it's an outrage, right? That's something that we should never accept during normal times. Now, the fact that we're going to get a temporary change in that during this bill is a big deal. So just like one example, right now, say you're a single mom, and this is an example, the organization I used to work for, the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities, they love these tax credits, the child tax credit and the earned income tax credit. And they are really anti-poverty provisions that provide a lot of support to certain families, but typically families who make some income. So the example that they use with this temporary expansion in this bill, if you were a single mom, you had a 4-year-old and an 8-year-old, but because of health reasons or other reasons, you are unemployed for an entire year. Right now, under current law, you get nothing from the child tax credit. But if this bill passes, which it will, you would get $6,600 for the year because you would get $3,600 for your 4-year-old and you would get $3,000 for your 8-year-old. So it's meaningful. But the fact that you would have gotten nothing previously is totally insane, and nobody should accept that. So, this speaks to we have a really paltry welfare state in the United States, and we really should be looking at what's in this package as this is the baseline that we should expect during normal times, not like an unprecedented amount of assistance that we're giving out during a pandemic. Let's all pat ourselves on the back.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and related, like, I know that the thing that they would say to push back at this point is okay, but also, like, look at the at Republicans, voting no. Look at the negotiations in this. Clearly, this is much more than what than people would have gotten if the Democrats had lost those special elections. Mm-hmm. They do like there are like this is a very different bill than anything Republican majority would have passed, which is true. But I also think it's kind of beside the point as far as like left criticisms of this stuff, because we're not comparing them to the Republicans. Right. We're comparing them to what they should and very easily could be doing.
I would also say, we're also comparing them to what we expect from Democrats, and I think we are correctly saying that this is more than we could have historically expected from Democrats, and it's better than these bills like this have been in the past from Democrats. But we are also in an unprecedented pandemic at this current time, and we should be very clear that even though this bill is expansive, it is not enough support for people struggling during this time, and that we still are theoretically still the richest country in the world, and we aren't able to do things like monthly stimulus checks. We weren't able to get the unemployment insurance expansion beyond $300. I know that there's some sort of it's not like $10,000 of it is not taxable across 2 years or something like that, but in the end we weren't able to get that UI to $400 a week. We weren't able to get it to the end of September. And I would say that while this does do better than the Trump bills for people that have dependents and for children and everything like that, I still think it is far below what people need right now.
Yeah, and in some important areas, far lower than what they directly said they would do.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It's ridiculous because
there we go.
I don't even understand where that. I don't know if the Biden campaign just gave them a bunch of potential headlines for them to pick from.
Well, this reads like a DNC fundraising email. It's like even if you want to acknowledge that this bill does more than the Trump bills did, to use this it's like state media language.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So here's the headline: Biden stimulus showers money on Americans, sharply cutting poverty and favoring individuals over businesses. Now, I'll take apart every part of this. Showers money on Americans is obviously like campaign language. Yeah. Sharply cutting poverty, I just have to balk at because the poverty hasn't been cut yet. You know what I mean? Like there are estimates that say this will potentially cut poverty, but the poverty is not currently cut. And so I do think it's weird to say in a headline like poverty is cut.
Totally. Yes.
And yes, it does favor individuals over businesses.
Yeah, but exactly the poverty cutting part is like it's just grammatic. Like it's like it's a linguistic thing or syntactical thing. It doesn't make sense
to me to
like
assert that poverty is now cut as of right now, or as this bill is passed.
Yeah, and can we read some more of that?
Let me scroll down here.
Okay,
Joe. Oh, there you go.
You go.
Joe Biden stimulus package, which has passed the Senate.
I like the way you refused. Not my president. It says President Biden.
Not my president, but this guy Biden. A stimulus package which passed the Senate on Saturday represents one of the most generous expansions of aid to the poor in recent history, while also showering thousands, or in some cases tens of thousands of dollars on American families navigating the coronavirus pandemic.
Yeah, what percentage of this? Some cases.
I don't know where are who is getting the tens of thousands of dollars? Like where how are you working out the tens of thousands of dollars that some are going to be receiving here?
And then and the roughly 1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan, which only Democrats supported, spends most of the money on low-income and middle-class Americans and state and local governments, with very little funding going towards companies. The plan is one of the largest federal responses to a downturn Congress has enacted, and economists estimate it will boost growth this year to the highest level in decades and reduce the number of Americans living in poverty by a third. And if we could scroll down more, Jack. Sorry. The round of aid enjoys wide support across the country, polls show, and is likely to be felt quickly by low and moderate income Americans who stand to receive not just larger checks than before, but money from expanded tax credits, particularly geared towards parents, enhanced unemployment, rental assistance, food aid, and health insurance subsidies. But the ambitious legislation entails risks, both economic and political. The bill, which the House is expected to pass and send to Biden within days, injects the economy with so much money that some economists from both parties are warning that growth could overheat, leading to a bout of hard-to-contain inflation.
This is like when people are in job interviews and they say, "What's your biggest flaw?" They say,
I work too hard.
Too hard.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Some economists worry that they're spending too much money uplifting hardworking Americans.
It's ridiculous.
And it really feels like a press release.
It's totally a press release. Yeah. This is the Larry Summers press release. The other one was from Biden. But can you show that comment again, Nick? Sorry, I missed that. Oh my God. So the New York Times headline was Biden lifts up poor to jolt recovery.
Jeez.
I don't know. We should rate that. Which one's better? Which one gets more? What's a state media symbol we could give it? But can we? Sorry, there's one. Let me keep going with that. Lower down, please. Lower. Sorry. Meanwhile, some businesses are saying that government aid has been so generous that they're already having trouble getting unemployed workers to return to work, a problem that could be exacerbated by the legislation. So, Ben Spielberg, what say ye on this?
I mean, I think it's absurd. One, it's a common thing in the mainstream media to see people cite what business owners are saying as if it's fact, which is just absurd. I mean, of course, businesses are going to tell you really shouldn't give anybody money because we need them to be destitute so that they take our poverty wages that we're offering.
Yeah. You're paraphrasing. We don't quite say it that way, if only. Yeah.
Right, but I mean,
no, but I think that is the gist of it.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Right, I mean, that is the idea that that's actually empirically based is something that is not really challenged, which I think is a big problem. The other thing that's weird about this in general is in some cases you still don't want people working in person. I mean that's kind of a weird component of it as well. But
yeah, you're right.
I generally just think business owners are given far too much leeway in media stories to just say what they think and opine it on how the economy works and have it reported as fact rather than investigated.
Well, that's the point. It's like when they're not saying like we want people to be poor enough to have to take our wages, which are terrible. Obviously, like that would be great if that's how they were reported on. But it's like, but business, owners are concerned that, and it's not like that they won't be able to exploit people. It's like, right, that this will be too, it'll overheat the economy, inflation. Yeah. And it
is amazing because given other Ben's point that right now there are lots of people you don't want to return to work because there's still a pandemic going on. Vast majority of people haven't been vaccinated. You could lose a lot of the a lot of the progress that's been made in declining cases and all that. But also even if you did want people to go back to work, if they're being paid less, they're being offered less in wages than this relief. There is another way to correct that imbalance besides giving people less relief to get through it.
Right. Good point. Yeah. Can we go down on the thing more a little bit? Sorry. And let's see.
Sorry, where were we?
Staggering. The total numbers are staggering. I mean, all of this stuff is just. I feel like it's language that's like. Oh, okay, hold on.
This is not the opinion section.
That's the thing.
This is the economy section. This is the economy section of the Washington Post.
Right.
Democracy dies in darkness.
Yes,
and in my opinion, there's a lot of opinion in this. There's a lot of adverbs used that express implicitly an opinion. The total numbers are staggering. It's I don't know, I think this is better than Trump's bill, but $1,200 stimulus check and $600 UI expansion weekly from last year's bill could have been described as showering money on Americans. I don't think it should have been because I don't think that's a good headline for a respectable newspaper to use, but it wasn't then, and it is now.
Right.
But that was already, I mean, if you want to be staggered about it just because you're spending an unprecedented amount of money, that already was an unprecedented amount of money for something like this. So you could have called that staggering and showering money and all this stuff. I mean, it seems like whether you're staggered depends on what you think should happen. You know?
Who's doing it. Yeah. Right. Yeah, so I just thought this was great. Like, yeah, we should do that. We should look for some keyword. Like, we should have a hashtag words that should not be in a reported piece, or like words that should be in editorial. Like staggering. What else? I mean, what are the words? I wish I had a red pen. We'll do this next time. I'll get some cool setup. But like the showering, the staggering. I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah, I don't know what these words. They're like. God, it's like Trump words. It's like how Trump would tweet about this stuff. He's like, "This is a staggering bill." Like this is like how Trump would
showering the American people in money.
About himself. We have showered the American people with money in this staggering bill.
Unbelievable. Wait, the numbers are staggering.
Yeah.
I'm imagining him saying that.
Yeah, that really does sound like state media, like comrades, the fulfillment of the 5-year plan has been staggering, as we meet every single quota.
Yeah, it's amazing. So we're gonna have a lot of that stuff to look forward to.
It does highlight, one thing that I think a lot about, kind of the way the media should function, just because I do tend to subscribe more to the Glenn Greenwald view of the way that media should be presented, which is people should be upfront about the perspective they're writing from and the biases that they have, and that we shouldn't really have kind of this myth of objective news.
I 100%
the news page
agree.
of the Washington Post, I mean, it is an editorial, right? I mean, it's one that's written with the veneer of objectivity, but you have the people who are writing these pieces generally are writing them from a state-centric perspective rather than the perspective that, those of us who are talking right now on the show might have about what's actually needed. And I think that they're so problematic and misleading for people because people think they're actually just consuming news when they're not.
Well, yeah, I mean, I agree, but Greenwald's thing is that you wear it on your sleeve. I mean, I like the whole point is that it's actually more honest to own your subjectivity than to claim to be objective. But that's not what the Washington Post is doing, and that I think is the most like it's this trend of technocracy where it's like just calling balls and strikes, just telling it like it is. Like, look, I would love to do this. It just happens to be that's going to cause more unemployment. All these things that people say in ways that people really just accept as like empirically informed instead of ideologically informed. So I'd be happy if this were an op-ed, but it's just not, which is, I think, exactly what makes it so scary. And again, it's like the discourse about fake news, and obviously, like, Fox News was, well, no, that was Trump's term for, like, this. He's right. I mean, but liberals think that the fake news comes from Fox, and it does come from Fox, but there's also fake news that's like, and this is why I think it's so dangerous to label certain things as fake news, or Twitter is going to ask you about this, because like you're giving an imprimatur, is that the way you say it? Imprimatur? I've heard it said both ways.
I don't know, actually.
Yeah.
This is one of these words I've only read.
Yeah, exactly.
So I would sound a fool if I tried to say it out
sound
loud.
a fool, yeah, I know. I go to the Vatican, people throw it around like it's going out of style, obviously, the Latin. But it like you're sanctifying stuff that isn't labeled that. And it's like, this is scarier to me. Like, my mom was just on talking about the, first Gulf War. Like, WMDs, where was the fake news allegations about that? Like, why weren't these places disgraced? I mean, Judith Miller, I guess, went to jail, but...
Not for that.
Yeah, right, it wasn't for that. You're right.
Judith Miller went to jail for, she's obviously a despicable person, but she actually went to jail for not being willing to reveal a source for a story, which is
admirable.
Like, admirable, it's what you should do. But,
yeah.
I mean, they have the New York Times did like a half-assed apology, but like somehow the fact that they were like the purveyors of objectively by far the most important piece of fake news in the last several decades, like never seems to, impact how people talk about them. I mean, I don't think we can imagine like Twitter and Facebook doing to a New York Times story what they did to like Hunter Biden story.
Yeah, which they should if they're going to do that. Yeah. What else? Do you guys want to return at all to the cinema thing? Should we just do you want to just address the claims of sexism? Yeah.
So one thing that I actually would be really interested to hear the other Bens and Jack and Katie, your take on is kind of to bring it back to this question when you think about the American Rescue Plan of how did we get something that, again, is better than what's typical from Democrats, and then the question of moving forward, how do we try to get our power to be leveraged so that we get significantly more than we just got? Because I think the thing that I worry about when something like this passes again is that there are people who are like legitimate, solid progressives who are, I would say, our allies, who are going to tout this as a gigantic victory, which again, I would say on some levels, there are aspects of this that are really good. And I would say we should credit and be excited about the fact that movements over the past 5 to 10 years, Fight for 15 is one that obviously in this specific instance got removed from the bill, but I think that movement has created a lot of pressure around this issue and around making this bill better. When you think about Black Lives Matter, when you think about the Bernie campaign, I think when you think about a variety of movements and then a variety of politicians who have started running on bolder agendas, that created the space for something like this to be the type of thing that Biden wants to do rather than something even worse. The question again is, moving forward, for me at least, how do we make sure that we actually get a minimum wage passed during the Biden administration and not the one that Joe Manchin wants? So I'm just curious to hear your guys' thoughts on that. Like, what moving forward do you think is the optimal approach?
I pray to God every day that this wretched nation will end someday. I don't know. I listen to smarter people than me who are part of movements and stuff like that, and I'm happy to jump on board with whatever they want to do. Yeah. But as far as I'm concerned, with the Joe Biden presidency, they're content to do nothing and just say like they won't let us get rid of the filibuster. So I'm not sure what is the thing to do. I think maybe if there were movements to try to get something like Medicare for all locally in certain states, I think that would be good. But I do think that the financing of that is extremely difficult, without federal backing. I think I am not as excited about the idea from like your Pod Save America people about like we need to go state to state and try to fight for 15 or whatever. I don't know. Like I do feel like, when I look forward at the rest of the Biden presidency, I don't have that high of hopes of bringing him left. So if I'm being totally honest with you, I would like for better things to happen, but I don't know how they will.
And I also don't know why we have to, like, I also think that, like, what is it, because is there like some strategic reason of praising? Why do we have to praise them for anything? Like, given that we should be always demanding. Yeah, I know. I mean, but even like.
I just wanted to jump in, about other Ben's, point, because, like, I mean, I agree with Jack that like the answer to like how do we get like a lot of these things to like happen during the Biden administration, I think we can't. I don't think they are. Like I think that and this is also why I agree with you, Katie, that like I don't think we should be praising this stuff, and that's not even like a like a moral thing. It's like bad. We shouldn't praise it. I think like strategically we shouldn't praise this stuff because like what's the game plan?
Right.
And if the game plan like there is that you can somehow like pressure or cajole or lobby or trick, Biden and the Democratic leadership into doing the things that the left wants, then like there's one version of that idea where I kind of get the idea that like, okay, what your role is to like lobby them behind the scenes, and you really want to like play up and celebrate your victories so you can like show that you're getting the goods or whatever.
Right.
And then there's like a more militant
like a quid pro quo.
Yeah, right. And then there's like a more militant version of the same idea that's like, oh, here are all of these like aggressive things we can do to pressure them. But I think in both cases, the assumption is that like Biden and Schumer and Pelosi are going to be brought around to do these things. And if they aren't, right, and I mean, we could have that argument. I think they're not. Like, if they aren't going to do the things that the left wants, which I think is, pretty clear with that $50 thing, then I think that the only way to ever get the things that we want is by beating them in primaries. That like winning, like replacing them, so the left can be in power and it can just do the things that it wants rather than worrying about how to like pressure or trick, Biden and Schumer and Pelosi into doing them. And if that's the plan, right? And again, I understand not everybody's on that page, but if that is the plan, then I think we need to be spending all of our time like emphasizing the ways that the glass is half empty, because the more every time we can point out, hey, here's a thing they could have done, here's what they did, here's the gap. Every time we can do that, that gives more ammunition for people who are running against all of these ghouls and primaries in 2022, 24, whatever.